Ever look up at the night sky and kind of get lost in the immensity of it all? Like how much is out there that we don't even, know about?
It can be a bit awe-inspiring, right?
Total brain melter. And that's kind of the vibe for today's deep dive, actually. We're going down a rabbit hole. We're asking what if our reality is, well, not so real after all?
Now we're talking. This is where things get interesting.
To help us navigate this, we've got Nick Bostrom's paper, Are You Living in a Computer Simulation? It's a wild ride. Basically, he lays out this argument about how if civilizations get advanced enough, and we're talking way advanced.
Post-human, he calls it.
Right, post-human. These beings could create simulations, like crazy realistic ones. But here's the kicker. What if we're in one right now?
Not just simulations, though. Simulations with conscious beings. Us. That's what makes his argument so compelling, I think.
Okay, so back up a second. How does he even get to simulations? Like, is this just a sci-fi thing or what?
Well, Bostrom doesn't say for sure that we are in a simulation. He just says it's a real possibility. He starts by imagining civilizations with unimaginable computing power. I mean, think about harnessing the energy of an entire star.
Stars as supercomputers. My brain's already hurting.
Exactly. But if you could do that, think what you could simulate. And if you can simulate a universe down to the smallest detail...
Wouldn't those just be, like, video game characters, not actually aware?
That's where substrate independence comes in. It's this idea that consciousness isn't limited to biological brains. Like, maybe it could exist on silicon, too.
So instead of neurons, we'd have code.
Exactly. And if a civilization could create tons of these ancestor simulations, places just like our world, the odds that we're the original humans become pretty slim.
Okay, now my head is officially spinning. So how do we even start to make sense of this trippy idea?
Well, this is where Bostrom introduces his trilemma. He says at least one of three things has to be true. Ready for this? Okay, so option one, civilizations like ours, well, they usually don't make it to the post-human stage. They go extinct first.
You're saying we wipe ourselves out before we even get to the simulation-making phase.
It's a sobering thought, right? The great filter, this idea that there's some kind of obstacle, a hurdle that civilizations hit.
And that's it. Game over.
Pretty much. It could be anything, really. A massive technological catastrophe. Maybe we create something we can't control.
Like those self-replicating nanobots you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Or maybe it's something totally different, some unforeseen consequence of toying with forces we don't fully grasp.
Okay, so that's option one off the table before we even get started.
Yeah.
Not exactly uplifting?
Not particularly, but hey, there's always option two.
Let's hear it. Hit me with proposition number two.
Proposition two says that maybe these post-humans, these super advanced beings, they get to that level of technology, and then what?
They make a beeline for creating simulated universes?
Not so fast. That's what we might assume, right? That with great power comes a cosmic urge to play SimCity. But what if they don't? What if they just aren't interested?
Wait, really? No interest at all. I mean, we humans are obsessed with our own history, our past. It's like we're hardwired to want to dig deeper, understand our origin.
Right, and that's us. But we're talking about being so far beyond our comprehension. It's like comparing our understanding of the universe to that of an ant.
Okay, so maybe it's just beyond our grasp. Maybe they've evolved past the need for simulations. Maybe they've found better ways to explore existence.
Precisely. Or maybe they've discovered that creating conscious beings within a simulation comes with a whole host of ethical dilemmas that they just aren't willing to touch.
Okay, I can kind of see that. It's like opening up a Pandora's box of what does it even mean to be conscious if you're not real.
Right. So that leaves us with option number three, the one that really throws a wrench into everything.
The simulation we're living in right now.
That's the one. The possibility that everything we perceive is real, our memories, our experiences, even the laws of physics.
It's all just lines of code in some supercomputer somewhere.
You've got it.
Yeah.
And that's where things get really interesting. Because if that's true, what does it mean for us? How do we even begin to wrap our heads around that?
So we've gone deep down this rabbit hole of simulated realities, explored the idea of a great filter wiping out civilizations, and even questioned if super advanced beings would even bother with simulations. Kind of makes you rethink, well, everything, doesn't it?
It does make you appreciate the sheer scale of it all, right? And the possibilities, even if they seem completely out there.
Absolutely. But I have to ask, for our listeners who are maybe just catching their breath after that whirlwind, what are we supposed to take away from all of this?
Well, like we've been saying, it's not about having all the answers. Bostrom's argument, whether you buy into it or not, it really forces you to confront some huge questions about, well, about reality itself. What does it even mean to be conscious? Where do we fit into this vast, possibly simulated universe?
Yeah, it's almost humbling, isn't it? Thinking about the universe or the simulation we might be in as this massive thing beyond our comprehension.
It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
It does. But then there's that part of me that thinks, even if it's all a simulation, what does it change, really? We still experience life. We still feel joy, love, sadness.
Yeah.
Those things are real to us.
Exactly. And that's something Bostrom touches on too. Even if it's simulated, it's still a reality. It's like he uses this analogy of painting. A painting, no matter how realistic, it's still just paint on a canvas. But that doesn't make it any less beautiful or meaningful, right?
Okay, I like that. I can get behind that. Our lives are still our lives, painted on this canvas of, well, whatever our reality actually is.
Exactly. And we get to choose those colors, simulated or not.
There's something empowering about that.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, one last thought is still bouncing around my head. If we someday, way down the line, if we start creating our own ancestor simulations, doesn't that lend credence to the idea that maybe, just maybe,
that we're in one ourselves, like that Hall of Mirrors effect, right? How many layers deep could it go?
exactly, kind of makes your head spin. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into the simulation hypothesis. It's a lot to process, but isn't that what we're here for? To explore these mind-bending ideas and hopefully leave you with more questions than answers.
Always. And hey, maybe next time you look up at the night sky, you'll see it a little differently.
With a renewed sense of wonder and maybe a healthy dose of existential dread. But hey, that's the fun of it, right? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep those minds curious.